Hi, and welcome to Studio SN. My name is Sara Naumann, and today I'm going to show you a stenciling technique featuring WOW embossing powders. You can combine your embossing powders with your stencils to create colorful textured backgrounds. And on the front of my card you can see this yellow pattern design. Well, this is heat embossing. So if you run your finger over this, you would be able to feel the raised area. So that is melted embossing powder. And the Harlequin design comes from a stencil. So you can combine the two of them to create a really fun look. And it's very easy to do. So let me show you what you'll need to get started. First, I have a piece of white scrap paper, and this is just a standard piece of scrap paper that I folded in half to create kind of a funnel effect. So I'm going to be working on the front of it for right now. And then I also need some glossy white cardstock, and I'll be working on the glossy side. So this is my background. I also need to have an embossing pad, so I'm working with the Versamark watermark stamp pad. There are other embossing pads that you can use as well. I need some embossing powder, and I'm working with WOW, and this is the Primary Lemon Regular, really bright, fun lemon yellow. Of course, I need a stencil as well, and this is the Harlequin stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, a 6x6 stencil. This is one of my favorites. I use this one a lot. And I also need baby wipes, so have a couple of these on hand for this technique. Now the first thing I'm going to do is take my watermark ink pad, and I'm simply squashing it down onto my glossy cardstock. So I'll just go around using a pretty firm pressure. So you really want to make sure that it's nice and inky. And it is a little bit tricky because of course you can see it sort of picks up the glossy cardstock. You don't want to get any fingerprints in there, so you do have to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to pick this up and gently put it inside my funnel cardstock here, my funnel paper. Take my embossing powder and just sprinkle this on. Now you can be pretty liberal with this. You can dump all of it on there because of course none of it will be wasted. You can just funnel it back into the jar. So I always like to do a heavier application than necessary because then you make sure you get all of the surface colored. Okay, and then I can kind of set that aside. Now I can use the funnel of this to put all the embossing powder back into the jar, so there's nothing that goes to waste. So I'm going to move this aside and my jar and my ink pad, and now I can bring in my stencil. And I need to do this part a little bit carefully. So I just simply place this down right onto the embossing powder. So the embossing powder has not been heat set yet. And it helps with the stencils to choose one that has some area that you can kind of hang on to, just so that it's not sliding around. Now I'm going to take my baby wipe and remove the embossing powder through the stencil. So you can see it's just sliding right off of that glossy paper. I haven't tried it with matte cardstock yet, but I suspect the glossy paper makes it easier to remove some of that embossing powder. So I'm just going to come around here, hang on to another portion of the stencil, and this is where I'm really using a couple of baby wipes, just so I'm not picking up some of the embossing powder and then just moving it to another area. Okay, so come back and make sure that I've got all of it removed that I want. A little bit over here, and then I'll lift off the stencil, and you can see here is my patterned design. So now all I need to do is heat set this, and you just go ahead and melt that embossing powder with an embossing gun or a heat tool. Give it a couple of minutes. It's going to take some time for all of this area to melt under the heat. So give it a little bit more time than you might think, and then after you've melted all of the embossing powder on here, give it another couple of minutes to sit and cool down before you handle it. Otherwise, it can, you can get a fingerprint in there, or you can also hurt yourself by putting your fingers into the still hot embossing powder. And when you're done, you will have a piece that looks like this. So I think when I wiggle this, you can see the shine of it. And you've got a really beautiful raised background on there. And then you can, of course, do with this as you wish. You can use it as a background, as I've done on my card. So let me bring back in my original card, and we can take a look at this. I simply matted it onto black cardstock and then combined it with the gray pattern papers. I love yellow and gray together. I think they're a really striking color combination. And having the pink and the little lime green accents on here is really nice as well. The papers are from the Mirage papers from hot off the press, and this little accent piece is the Mirage die cuts, so they're designed to coordinate. And I put this down on foam tape and then added a button up on foam tape as well and a little bit of sheer green ribbon. Now the stamp on here is another one from hot off the press, and this is the ticket stamp. And so you have this really fun ticket design on here, some stars, that's a separate stamp. And then all of these sentiments that fit perfectly inside that ticket. So I stamped just for you. And I didn't emboss this, I just stamped this with black ink. And then highlighted it with a Spectrum Noir alcohol pen. And this is the CT4 yellow color, which matches perfectly with that lemon embossing powder. I don't know how they did that, but they did. So this is how you can combine your embossing powders with your stencils to create really fun textured backgrounds, super easy and very quick to do. I hope you enjoyed today's show. For more ideas and inspiration, please stop by my website at saranaumann.com. Thank you so much for joining me on Studio SN, and I will see you again next time.